You know what really grinds my gears? People who walk slowly in the grocery store. But more than that, ancient Greece and Scandinavia being treated as the only sources in the world for cool mythology. When I finally get around to making videos on any of those subjects, I'm going to have a ton of sources to work with. They have gross amounts of Eddas, epics, and poems. They have enough film adaptations to make red and blue cry. But you know what's really damn hard to find? These two. What, you don't recognize them? I don't blame you. Largely ignored by popular culture, the myths of Indonesia have haunted the jungles and little else since they were first whispered into existence, which is honestly amazing because of how outright strange they are, which is why I introduced to you Barong and Rangda, two of the bigger players on those sparse islands. Legends on the Isle of Bali tell of a king named Undayana who sought to expand his reach onto the neighboring island of Java by marrying a princess there named Mahendratata. It was a political move that seemed beneficial to both parties, but there was unsurprisingly little love behind the actual marriage. They had a son and a daughter, but that was about as effective at fixing their relationship as expected. As nothing more than a tool for expansion, the woman, isolated and alone in a foreign nation as a trophy wife, turns to the Hindu goddess Durga, mother of war and protector of the innocent, and harbinger of divine destruction. Durga then saw her servant as the political pawn that she was and said, "Nope, we won't be having any of that nonsense, thank you," and promptly gave her dominion over a horde of demons. Probably not the most efficient method, but you don't get a lot more effective than that. Now effectively armed with the power of God and anime on her side, and all the grace and subtlety of a death metal album, she told her husband, the king, in hopes of gaining his favor. I mean, come on, your wife now controls a horde of motherfucking demons. How hardcore is that? Family dinners with the in-laws are a lot more tolerable when your wife can literally swallow her own mother into the depths of hell. Unfortunately, Mahendratata didn't exactly consider the husband's point of view in the lens of, my wife can literally dredge up demons for not doing the dishes, and immediately had her dragged before the court and exiled for plaguing the land with evil. Banished and alone into the jungles, she built a small Balaidaha hut far from the prying eyes of man, and then proceeded to truly embrace the dark arts and vengeance. Apparently, she wasn't exactly alone in her supposed isolation. Turns out the average hapless villager has plenty of things to be salty over, and their wives even more so. The bitter-hearted women of the villages neighboring the jungles would venture into the swamps, seeking her advice. Unfortunately, her only foolproof answer to everything was, "That sucks, you should summon demons about it or something." So pretty much the only hope she could offer them was to teach them black magic. And so they became her little jungle witch students called Layaks, which are described as cannibalistic, disembodied floating heads with entrails hanging down beneath a long tongue. Not sure how that transformation goes, but it sounds pretty unpleasant. Soon, not only did she have an army of demons at her call, but also a horde of absolute nightmares. With this, her presence in the jungles grew, and it became common knowledge that monkeys were no longer the most terrifying thing to haunt the swamps. One day, one of these horrific Layak monstrosities approached her in her hut, informing her that King Undayana was to be married again. Enraged, she sent out her agents to retrieve her son, Erlenga, telling him to meet her at the edge of the jungles. On a dark, rainy night, when he finally arrived in secret, she begged him to implore his father not to remarry, for she would not be replaced so easily. But with his mother now dressed in tattered rags, with matted hair, long nails, and eyes bulging from paranoia, he denied her and fled in what I consider a unjustified but totally understandable panic. Eventually, Ratna, Mahendratata's daughter and princess, came to her as well, claiming no suitors would flirt with her over the years because her mom is a literal witch. So like any good mother, she took her in, and then proceeded to also teach her black magic. Because, f*** it, why not? Almost immediately, she had become the strongest Layak in her mother's horde. Further enraged, she started taking her studies more seriously, and as her power grew, so did the health of King Undayana wane. Eventually, he passed away, and on the same day, a child strayed too far from a village and was abducted by Mahendratata in her convent of Layaks. As the first true sacrifice to Durga, the Hindu goddess was pleased and granted her tusk-like teeth and a long tongue which hung down to the floor, along with the added bonus of raw immortality. From that day forth, the people called her Rangda, the queen of witches and demons, the name meaning widow in Old Javanese. Now knowing her mother was looking to ground him for the weekend for having all the hellspawn in the world to do it, Rangda mustered an army of his own, proud and noble, clad in gold, to slay the demons and their tyrant. Too bad she killed them all. Venturing into the jungles, vainly searching for her lair, they found only a plague which ravaged his men and slew half his army in under a week. Now having effectively lost the war without even making first contact, King Rangda enlisted the help of Barada the Wise, a holy man from Lemma. His solution was to send his assistant, Bahula, to marry Ratna, thereby removing Rangda's strongest piece from the board. And it worked. Sort of. Bahula did marry Ratna, but really to only find out Rangda's weakness, which turned out to be a cursed grimoire, which he copied and provided to Barada. Apparently, he was able to recoup some of the losses of his army, raising them from the dead by reading the book backwards. Yeah, I don't know either. Anyway, Rangda wasn't an idiot and knew dead armies don't normally get up and unpestilence themselves. Now even more pissed off at the trick, she unleashed an even bigger plague upon the island, slowly killing everyone and everything with it. Realizing they were still royally hosed, Barada called upon their ace in the hole and second major player in our video today, Barong, the king of spirits. His name is thought to be derived from the word Barong, which means bear, which is odd because though he can shapeshift into many animals, he's most often described as a mixture of a lion and a Pekingese dog, adorned with jewels, mirrors, frangipani flowers, and a pair of monkeys for some reason. Friendly and playful like an ambling puppy, there doesn't appear to be much more to say about him. Despite my research, I couldn't find much else about him. With his origin dating back to pre-Hindu influence into local animist religions, he doesn't seem to have any kind of backstory or major significance beyond his role as a foil to Rangda in our story. Anyway, joining with Rangda's army, they dipped their Chris daggers in poison and ventured into the jungle to face her once again. Still ticked off about the whole thing, Rangda cast an enchantment upon them, compelling the soldiers to slit their own throats with their toxic blades. But before the soldiers could instantly end the war for her, Barong unleashed an earth-shattering roar which broke the spell. Combined with her own hellish shriek of fury, the soldiers panicked and fled. Replacing them with an army of spirits of his own, Barong engaged her directly in the dense jungles, supposedly in a battle that would last forever. An invisible war of demons and spirits that rages unseen on the Isles to this day, like some manifestation of the struggle between good and evil within men's hearts. Go on, tell me that isn't badass. Seriously, how does this not have a movie yet? The whole thing is even captured in a traditional dance that serves as an extremely popular tourist attraction. And it's not the only one either. There's also a swords dance involving the use of these Chris daggers, which showcases the battle between Rangda and Rangda in the jungle, the dance of which is so extreme in its representation that it allegedly induces a legitimate trance-like state on the dancers. According to Tribune News, a 16-year-old kid actually stabbed himself to death in February of 2021 during the scene where Rangda's curse compels Rangda's army to turn their blades against themselves. Man, I'm noticing an uncomfortable trend in my videos lately. There's also another dance called the Rayog, which is internationally famous for crafting the largest worn mask in the world, spanning over 2.5 meters across and weighing as much as 100 kilograms, or 220 pounds. Take this story with a grain of salt though. As I mentioned before, I didn't have a lot of sources to work with here. There are no academic books about this story or tradition that I'm aware of, and what little I was able to piece together came from various wiki articles and tourist blogs. And honestly, I find it kind of sad that no serious effort seems to be put into recording a definitive version of this legend. Honestly, this is the kind of stuff that bothers me. The world has just so many cultures in it with their own unique stories that are so easily benched due to the overwhelming popularity of others. And don't get me wrong, those cultures have plenty of stories that are also overshadowed by their own. Everyone with an internet connection knows Thor, Loki, Zeus, and Hercules through pop culture osmosis, but so little is mentioned about others like Chiron, Canis, Vasir, or Valley that it's honestly kind of depressing, but that's just my thoughts on the matter. Anyway, that's all I got for today about the tale of Rangda and Barong. Hopefully you guys liked this video, and if you did, leave a like and or subscribe, and a comment about what kind of topics, stories, or myths you'd like me to cover next. But until that time, senpai jumpa besok, or until next time.